My name is John Gill. I'm the Director of Business Development for Network Rail. I just really wanted to leave school and get a job. So that's how I didn't go to college. I didn't do any further education, didn't do sixth form or anything like that. I got pretty decent grades. But as I was in my last year of school, I was applying for apprenticeships, which were quite a big thing in those days. I applied for many apprenticeships, went for loads and loads of interviews, and I got accepted in about 4 of them. Various ranges from British Rail, which is what I eventually took, British Airways and British Aerospace, I think it was at the time. And the reason I chose the railways was nothing to do with I was a railway geek or anything. It was just at the time I was quite a shy kid, and all of the others meant living away for quite a while. And so I chose the railways and started on an apprenticeship scheme. Back in the day, so 1987, it was really interesting because apprenticeships were seen as a real key for future leaders, team leaders and the like. So I was in a signalling apprenticeship, so engineering. The apprenticeship scheme was supposed to be for 4 years, and I only lasted 2 years because I got really comfortable in a place called Old Oak Common near Paddington on the Western Route, and a job came up as a technician, and I went for it. I fell into management by accident, you know, because over the years I became a team leader in signalling, again on the Western, and the supervisor in those days, he went off on stress. So I had to stand in because I was the most experienced and probably the only mug who was going to do it as well. And he never came back. And so after 6 months I'd been doing it, and the boss, the engineer, came in and said, "Would you want to do it permanently?" Lots of really good times. There's some down times as well through that. There was an enormous amount of tragedy as well. So working on the railways isn't the safest place. Safety has come a long way, but back when I started in the railways, it wasn't the safest place. So people would lose their lives. You know, people would come to work and not make it home. You know, so there was lots of track worker fatality. And it was about 91. You know, I'd only been on 4 years. We had one most tragic accident where me and some colleagues went to attend a points failure, middle of the night, and there was 3 of us, and only 2 of us came back because one of my colleagues, one of my best friends at the time, Brian Ward, got struck and killed by a train. And that happened multiple times, and it wasn't because we were working on safety. The safety systems in those days weren't the same. But I'll tell you what, it was really tragic at the time. Made me a much bigger and better person. And during my time on the Western, it wasn't just track worker fatalities, which were challenging for me as an individual. We had some major train crashes on the area as well. So Southall happened, so Southall train crash happened in '96, I think it was, and Ladbroke Grove shortly after that. And having to witness that and manage that is not easy for anyone. Up until about 2003, so I'd been on the railways about 15 years then, and I started getting into really senior manager jobs and into senior management. A lot of training along the way in terms of leadership and everything like that, managing multiple disciplines, you know, hundreds of people, 600 people working for me in different functions and everything. The next stage of my career was after we'd become privatised, so 2005, 2006. We'd been privatised a long time then, but I went from an engineering job, and I took a big gamble. I went over to operations, so it was totally different function. So it's like going from totally one discipline to another. So, and being the head of that function. So I went over to the West Country and I became the area general manager there. And there was lots of people raising eyebrows in that. Now I was dealing with directors and the like, about what does John know. They know me as a maintenance and renewals engineer, but you're going to get him to lead the customer focused part of the business. That's a big gamble. But the guy who put me in, Robbie Burns, who was an ex-military guy, real senior military guy, saw the leadership qualities, and I really liked the being AGM, so area general manager, dealing with the customers, dealing with the train operating companies, dealing with the maintenance guys who I had come from, so they were a different function, but holding them to account which was really good. I did that for about a year. Then things got really bad with some more track worker fatalities, and Ian Coucher had then rung my new boss up and said, I need John to come back to the Thames Valley and do one of the big maintenance jobs because it's really, really bad. The company's in a really bad place. So Dave, when he asked me, and I said, look, no, I'm not doing it. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing in the West Country here. Really good team, really making a difference, thoroughly enjoying it. Thanks, but I'm gonna stay here. And the following morning, Ian rang up and said, you know what this call is about, right? So Ian Coucher was our CEO. And then you don't say no to the CEO. So I said, look, I'm coming, I'm gonna pack my bags. And I remember I sat down with my team there, because it happened so quickly. It happened like, in 10 minutes you gotta go. So I sat down with my team, I told them what was happening. And I said to them, look, I'll be back in 6 months. And each of them said, you're never gonna come back. And I truly believed that after 6 months of fixing what needed to be fixed in Thames Valley, I was gonna go back to the West Country. And I never did, and they knew better. I went on to bigger and better things. My next step was I got a call from the Senior Director of Maintenance, Steve Featherstone, who said, look, would you fancy your first director role over in Sussex? And I just really jumped at it, and I thought, right, that'd be really, really good for me. I want to move, because I spent all my first 20 years on the Western route, and it's a big route, and I had a really good time. But I really wanted to move to a different route where no one knew me. By then, I'd had lots and lots of leadership skills. I'd put lots of those in practice. I'd worked with some really good people. I've worked with some people who were not so good. And by then, after 27, 28 years working in the industry, I'd built up quite a lot of networks and built lots of relationships as well. And I was doing really well, and just thoroughly enjoying it, having a really good time. Moved into lots of different roles, started dealing with very senior people in government now as well, dealing with chairmen and CEOs on much more of a personal basis, which is really good. So the current role that I'm in now in business development is really, really good. Business development is quite new to the industry. It's only been a couple of years now, 2 years. And what our main focus is to take the burden off the taxpayer, because we used to fund all of our big enhancements, like build big stations like Reading and London Bridge, King's Cross, through taxpayers' money. At that time, that model worked. Was it right? Was it wrong? Who knows? But the model now is we go to private investment, and we look to them to say, look, if you want us to do a big enhancement, you'll have to pay for it, because you're going to get a lot of the upsides. The property market really does benefit when we do these big schemes as well. So they should contribute. Not only contribute, they're going to have a say in how we form it as well. So the relationship is really, really good, and it feels like we are doing something that is absolutely right. It's not putting a burden on the taxpayer. And the beauty of doing it like this, it makes it less likely for the government, if you have a change in government, which can happen at any time, for them to take over the company or do something with it. If it's self-funding, it's paying a lot of and it's not just a massive burden on the taxpayer. That's a big fundamental difference. I think with business development, the key skill is building relationships, building trust. But you have to follow up and do what you say. I think that's the real key thing. I think with other people who try and do this type of role, our chairman, Sir Peter Hendy, asked me to do this role, a good friend of mine, and asked me to consider doing this role. And it's because of the relationships we built in and around London. You have to be personable, you have to deliver on what you say, and honesty and integrity is really key for that as well. But you mustn't put aside there's a business element to it, because it's got to be financially viable. Otherwise, you can be nice and do all the saying, doing the right things, but if it's not making a profit, just like I do in my personal business life, that I can do all the wonderful things in our businesses, but if they're running at a loss, that's not a good thing. So it's always got to make a profit. It's got to be sustainable as well. I went to quite a rough school. Didn't have a lot of money where we grew up. I was really good at maths. I was good at things like physics. Maths was my thing though. I was really good at maths. I never went to uni. I never went to college, but I did lots of learning on the job. And at some point in my career, I did my chartership and I've become a chartered engineer. The qualifications wise, I'm not convinced that there's an enormous amount that would help. It does help if you're an accountant. It does help if you know a bit about business. I've learned through my time, but I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer by trade, and I think I do this job pretty well. But I don't think it's because I've got an engineering background. It's because I understand railways. I understand how they work as well. But business development, it couldn't hurt having some sort of financial background. That would help. My most favourite part about business development in my current role is meeting business entrepreneurs that previously I would never have met working in the rail industry. Okay, so it's people like, I won't name names, but the entrepreneurs who are effectively billionaires themselves, and now I'm able to have a one-to-one relationship with them about how they can invest in the railway. So I really, really like that, and seeing the other side of people who have built business empires, in some cases from nothing, from absolute nothing. And there's always in the media about Donald Trump, Richard Branson, and people like that really fascinate me. That when I meet and I build a relationship with these people, and what does fascinate me, I've never met Trump, sorry, let's get away from that, but I've met some really fascinating entrepreneurs, and almost instantly when I meet with them, I almost get it straight away, why they're so successful. Almost instantly, I get it. I think there's something about you that is different to other people. And it's something about you that makes me think that you're listening to me as well. And the way they are with people is just absolutely fascinating. So that's the best part of me meeting new people that I would never have thought I would have met in a rail company job. I don't even find it that much of a challenge, but I can see why other people doing my role would, is the internal politics and the department's rules and regulations about doing things and how slow it is to do that. So the reason I don't find it that much of a problem is because I've been here over 30 years. I know how to navigate around that. I know people who can help me navigate that. But someone new coming into this role will really struggle with the internal red tape that we just wrap ourselves up with. Some of it we have to have because of the safety, taxpayers' money, and all of that side. But that is the part of it I don't like. Whether I'm working or not working, so I get up at 5:10 every morning. So either I'll go to the gym, or either I'll get changed and I'll come to work really early, and I enjoy doing that. And then we'll meet with clients, we'll go in and around London, you meet with potential developers, you'll have regular meetings, you'll have meetings in coffee shops sometimes as well. This is just the way the world is now. I tend to, we don't do evening meals with clients as much. Sometimes we have to do that. I like to be home with my family, if I can help that as well. But broadly, it's going back and forward to meetings, being able to influence investment into the railway and keeping on top of things that are currently being developed, and just meeting people really as well. Try and find something that you like doing. Okay, it's really, really easy to chase the pound signs that potentially, if I do this career, that it's going to make me lots of money, or it's going to take me to some wonderful places. In my experience, that doesn't always work. And what I've had the privilege of doing all my working career is doing something I really, really enjoy doing, to the point that I would do it for free. And most of my 33 years that I've been here, there's most days that I would have come to work for nothing. Yeah, and that's not completely true. But money doesn't drive me. But the passion of what you're doing and something you're genuinely interested in is really, really important. When I was growing up, not a privileged area that I grew up, we never had a lot of money, and I just had no idea what career I was going to go into. Just had absolutely no idea. So, and not a lot of guidance. And that's no reflection on my parents or my upbringing. They did the best they could. But the fact of the matter is, I just had no real guidance in terms of where I wanted to go. So if I think back to when I was 13 or 14 in school, I was sort of thinking, should I be a bricklayer, a car mechanic, maybe working in McDonald's sounds like a real facet, free food, and crazy things like that. So I didn't have a master plan, and I sort of fell into railways by pure accident. But the one thing that I did do was I worked hard. I found something that I was sort of good at, and it really, it made me want to come back for more. I worked for a company who seemed to like me as well, and that drove me on as well. If you look negatively upon things, negative things tend to happen. But if you have a positive outlook in life, in your work, in your home environment, and everything you do, whether it's a sport that you're doing, positive things tend to happen, and all of the noise tends to get out of the way as well. And it's always good, and I've always looked forward, I've always been driven to do better things, and that's not for everyone, let's be really clear, because lots of my working career when I was out working on the tracks within the railways meant working throughout the night, shift work, weekends where my friends were going out and enjoying themselves, working bank holidays, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, throughout working on the tracks. So if you want to be successful, so first of all of that, working hard and all the hours God sends isn't for everyone, okay? But at the time it was for me. And that is part of my success, and that I felt was really important, that you can have all the positive thoughts throughout your life, but if you're going to sit back and wait for things to happen, that's not how it works. Okay, it's having some sort of vision, have some sort of direction of where you want it to go, and then putting in the hard work that goes behind it. And what you'll find in most cases is that everything else just gets out of the way. That you can be whatever you want to be. I always say to my kids that dream big. I mean, when you dream big, then dream bigger. Yeah, if that's what you want to do.